What it is, what it doing, how the hell are all of you? It's yours truly, Petra. Fucker back with another mother love. You already know the deal. Grab your smoke, grab your drink, and lock with your boy, because we back with another one. Now, if you follow Hotbox Talk, if you follow my show, if you follow my clap or whatever, YouTube, however you found the show, whatever, like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll do whatever you can to help follow the show if you fucks with the show. I do interact back. If you comment, I do comment back. If you guys, if you want to argue, I argue back. You holla at your boy. You already know what it is. Now, you can see on the screen, it's a Domino's, right? And this Domino's is right next to this building. And these photos are old. These are from the George Floyd riots, the summer 2020 riots. The reason I bring it up today is because going back and looking at these old photos, I grew up in this neighborhood. I've talked about it before. I just want more people to understand that I grew up here. I remember getting pizzas from this joint with my grandma. I remember going to this Cub with my mom's. I remember going to the Target with my sister. I remember going to the Wendy's with my grandma. I remember going to the tobacco store with my cousin. I remember going to Maxipon for my first DVD. Right? So when I went down there that night of these riots and I watched them burn all this shit down, all of it. No problems. And then like this outside the George Floyd Memorial. I'm not saying that dude had to die. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have that he should have died. You know what I mean? But what I am saying is, and there's certain situations that if you would have fucking complied, you would still be alive today to talk your shit and to be as angry as you fucking want. More prevalently right now, after I just talked about this yesterday in an episode about Kim Potter and Dante Wright. If you watch the Dante Wright video, if that boy would have complied, he wouldn't have been shot. He wouldn't have then drove his car into another person and hurt that person. Now, I'm all for accountability. I'm all for responsibility because that was something I was taught as a youth that I needed to accept. It wasn't something that, oh, you have a choice to accept it, Petrov. No, it was you need to accept it because this is what it is. This is how it is. This is why it is. You know what I mean? And I feel somewhere along the way we lost accountability and responsibility. And I say it like that because when we go through all this and we're driving on through and all these people are out protesting, right? They think they're out there doing a good thing. This is before the police precinct had actually been burnt down. This picture was taken. But let that sink in. Now, as we keep going, I'm just going to scroll through, keep scrolling, just to show all these people. These are all the people that are, fighting for injustice. You know what I mean? They think they're doing the right thing. But one of the things that we see a lot in these videos, it's a lot of white people. And when I say white people, I don't mean your average Joe, your average cracker, your average honky. What I'm saying is you see these white people that are okay. Now, mind you, the progressive strong arm in Minneapolis is so strong and so overwhelmingly prevalent. Conservatives in Minneapolis are probably afraid to be conservatives. Let that shit sink in. The month of the June of after George Floyd passed away, KARE 11 News did 2 separate interviews with 2 separate people over north and over south Minneapolis. Both people talked about gunshots in the neighborhood, this, that, the other. The craziest thing one of these progressive white women said was, what was funny is because she had dreads, she had the hippie look, the pierced nose, all these things, right? And here we are years later, and we've had to have the argument about cultural appropriation when it comes to dreads or cornrows or braids, and goes back to the same conversation every time that Vikings did it. So neither here nor there. But this lady, she said that if a person robbed her house, came in and took her TV off her stand, they must have needed it more than she did. Her words, not mine. You literally can go on YouTube, look up KARE 11, and look up interviews around this time based around crime, around that time, June 2020, and you'll find that that interview. It was fucking insane. But one of the things that I really wanted to get into in this brief episode, because I'm going to try to keep it brief, is my distaste for Antifa, my distaste for Black Lives Matter. Now, Tim Pool did a video today about Lori Lightfoot saying that the city was up for grabs during those riots. Chicago was up for grabs, didn't know what to do, couldn't quell the issues, couldn't quell the looting, the violence, etc., right? Minneapolis was under basically the same turmoil. That's why half of the city is still burnt the fuck down. But Antifa members had caught felonies for their crimes they committed in Chicago at the time. That's wild. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy that it took this long for there to be any kind of, how to say it? It took this long for there to be any kind of repercussion. I understand the justice system works the way it does. But clearly when you have the arrests made, the case is already built, why drag it out? Why not show the people? Why is this not on a much grander media scale, letting everyone know, hey, the looters, the rioters did get caught up? I can ask myself that same question. And I say it like that because I've talked about Bryce Williams, one of the young cats that helped burn down the 3rd Precinct. Now he faces 2 years in federal prison. He has to be on house arrest for 2 years. And he has to pay $12 million in restitution. Hear that again, $12 million in restitution. How come major media outlets in Minnesota, local major media outlets, have not spoken up about those people that are being charged for the crimes that they committed? And it's what I always come back to is it's like people still want to push that Antifa is just an ideology. It's just an idea. It doesn't exist. When clearly it does exist, when clearly it's not an idea. But yet here we are. And I see these photos every time I go through my photo log, just like we all see our photos, right? This was a safe they decided to break into in a Walgreens after they robbed the pharmacy and took all the medicine out of it, including medicine you couldn't get high off of, the medicine you couldn't sell, but yet they still found a reason to steal it. So when Antifa and Black Lives Matter talk about caring about the neighborhood, caring about the people, this, you truly don't. You prove that by robbing pharmacies, robbing armories, because there was an armory that they robbed right over on Chicago, right by the Midtown Plaza, after they robbed the Foot Locker, the T-Mobile, and had the stores burnt down. Not to mention the multiple liquor stores and bars that were burnt down and robbed. But yet here we go. And then like this was somebody spray painted this: rebellion, spread virus, divine annihilation. This was a bar that my family had worked at, the Hexagon. It doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. It's never going to come back. And this is just a side note too. When you go over on Broadway over north, and you see the O'Reilly's that was burnt down, that was burnt down in the summer of 2020 as well. They just haven't rebuilt it and probably won't rebuild it. But yet now the people in that part of over north can't even go get the car parts that they need to fix their cars. But we see this. And right across the street from this Hexagon at this point, when I was taking pictures, there was not one car in the parking lot that was actually from Minnesota. From Tennessee, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Iowa, Wisconsin. But I didn't see not a Minnesota license plate. Now, I should really find the camera that I used, or the SD card that I used that day, and upload more videos, more photos. But, and then this right here. There's people that were that during those riots that were saying, oh, the National Guard's not out. The National Guard's not down there on Lake Street. When I could clearly show there was pictures of the National Guard down there on Lake Street. But I had people that hated my opinion so much when it came to Antifa or Black Lives Matter that they completely disowned me and stopped fucking with me. Because I was somehow the bad guy in the situation. And that's something that I kind of wanted to point out too, because I see it a lot. I see a lot of times, that the people that aren't supposed to be the bad guy in the situation end up being the bad guy because of the stance that they take in just about anything. If you tell someone, there's a video on TikTok of a black woman saying, Who let white people wear grills? Everyone said Paul Wall did, baby, back in the day. What you talking about? Point is, you would have someone come out to defend her stance and make you the bad guy in the situation. Same if it comes to the braid conversation. Same if it comes to if you're white and you're from the hood conversation. White people as a whole are a scapegoat for a lot of people's anger and a lot of people's misplaced rage. Let's just keep it a buck. Because not all white people are bad, but yet when people talk about white people and generalize, it's generalizing all of them together. Not just pure white people, mixed white people, sort of kind of white people. Only got like 5% Caucasian here, but you're still white, so fuck you too. You know what I mean? That's kind of what it comes down to, and that's something that I see. And when I see this, and I go over all these videos, and I think about it, and I think about what happened down there that day, and I think of the Domino's and all these other stores that were burnt down to never come back. The businesses that were in Minneapolis burnt down to never come back, to be replaced by mega corporations, by more low-income housing or more high-rises. Because the mom and pop shops couldn't afford to rebuild, to destroy what was destroyed and rebuild it. But the mega corporation surely could. So it really raises an eye at how billion-dollar companies really played a role in these riots. They didn't care. They opened the doors to have their shit looted and robbed. They didn't give a fuck. But all the small stores, oh yeah, they were on their motherfucking own. And that's something I think a lot of us could see and a lot of us could tell was extremely fucked up, but yet here we sat and here it went. Now I say it all like that because I don't want people to ever misunderstand why I have such a distaste for Antifa or Black Lives Matter. When you watch the city that raised you burn and all the buildings that you had memories in, all of a sudden up in flames, gone, never to cross that threshold again, and to see police officers, to see firefighters, to see the National Guard, to see sheriff deputies, to see state troopers, to see the state police all stand back with their hands tied, was a sight that I will never forget. I will never forget watching the police on top of the 3rd precinct not know what the fuck to do as they were ducking and dodging rocks and Molotov cocktails. I will never in my life forget seeing officers in SWAT gear literally cower in fear because their hands were tied. There was nothing they could do, but they still did accept the onslaught. I will never forget seeing the fence to the 3rd precinct go down. I will never forget seeing the first dumb motherfucker run inside the precinct when there were still cops inside of it and he got flashbanged and pepper sprayed. I will never forget that. And I will never forget watching the cops leave out one door and the collective flood the other. And as I showed in the video when I went down there just this last weekend, the precinct is still barricaded to the motherfucking nines. And when will that ever reopen? If it ever does, who fucking knows? But at the end of the day, the only people that I blame for that are Antifa, Black Lives Matter, Mayor Frey, and Governor Walz. So I want everyone to know that ever may question why I dislike Antifa and Black Lives Matter so motherfucking much. That is why. And the problems that evolved after that, Jacob Blake, Kyle Rittenhouse, Rayshard Brooks, all these cities were under fucking siege from the radical progressive left. And to this day, the radical progressive left will act like they did nothing wrong. They will still try to say, Martin Luther King said, the violence, riots are the voices of the unheard. Violence is the voices of the unheard, however he said it, right? And I think if you had Martin Luther King here today, he probably wouldn't have backed that motherfucking movement as much as they would have liked to think he would have. Just like when they misused Malcolm X. And they want to talk about, oh, he was this, this, and this. He wasn't that when he died. He wasn't that hateful when he died, but yet you don't want to see that or respect that part. But yet here we are. You know what I mean? So that's one of the reasons I just had to get that back out there, and I can't let that slide. Especially seeing today that Chicago finally got a little bit of justice when it came to Antifa and Black Lives Matter running around there like a chicken with their head cut off. Now, when I talk about that, this is the Chicago Tribune, and they people had requested a Freedom of Information Act of Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Now, she called, if you read here, Chicago Mayor Lightfoot privately called an official a dumb person of color. Alderman Jason Irving, she texted, was full of crap. She told Alderman Brendan Riley he was a Bush League. She referred to Alderman Byron Sigcho Lopez as a jackass in a text to another council member. Lightfoot's bullshit style is no secret, but a trove to the text messages recently obtained by the Tribune further revealed the extent to which the mayor, who campaigned as a reformer aiming to unite the city, at times resorts to name-calling and shaming as her perceived enemies as she governs the city. Now, where I want to bring it to is right down here. We are losing downtown. Lightfoot regularly hears from the alderman about crime, which she has spiked dramatically in Chicago over the past 2 years because, as I've said before, Lightfoot has done nothing but harmed Chicago versus helped Chicago. Same with like Minneapolis, having all the police chiefs continually start up, quit, start up, quit, start up, quit, start up, quit, start up, quit. You don't have anyone that's actually trying to be a person of the job for a long, lengthy amount of time because they know they just can't withstand the political pressure from it. You're going to be someone's friend next week and they're going to come at your door the next week. I mean, look at Lori Lightfoot had her entire block closed off during the 2020 riots. You could not go down her fucking block. Elijah Schaffer tried. He tried to go down her block in Chicago, and guess what? The police would not let her. So as downtown Chicago burned and was looted and rioted on, you could not even go down her block. Funny how that's rules for me, private security for thee. You know what I mean? Now, South Loopers are complaining, of course, and there is talk of leaving the city. Dowell said, "My commander has taken steps to address but the Public Transit Division, CBT, doesn't have enough resources. I'm very concerned and focused on CTA issues," Lightfoot responded, "but yet these issues have not resolved. They have not gotten better." And yet, Lightfoot still holds her helm as the mayor. Alderman Greg Mitchell texted Lightfoot in July 2020 about several carjacking armed robberies in Calumet Heights on the south side. He told her about kids stealing high-end luxury vehicles at gunpoint and using the stolen cars to commit additional carjackings. "On it, I will call you back myself as soon as I get a break from meetings. But I have been worried about this, consistently asked about it, and was told by CPD that they had a collaborative plan with the burbs." Lightfoot said, "I will make sure this gets renewed focus." Nearly a year and a half later, carjackings are up significantly. So, right there is the answer. That's what the progressive left pushes. They tell you to look in their left hand as they slap you with their right hand. They tell you these are apples, but they're very much oranges. They say we're going to look into this when they never have any intentions on looking into it. And that's why she calls her aldermans jackasses, Bush League, etc. And yet here we are. And I'm gonna always say that because like when I think of Minneapolis, we got Ilhan Omar at the motherfucking helm. 5th District has that bitch. Now Mayor Frey may have kept his power, got a little bit more power from the Clown Council. That's a blessing in its own right. But the motherfucker's still a progressive. Governor Walz is still a progressive. So that progressive blue is still so deep into the motherfucking city, there's no way around it. Hence why I've also said it's like these cities, especially Minneapolis, is in a perpetual state of insanity. They don't know when they're going to break the cycle because they don't know how to break the cycle. Same with Chicago. I've said it before. Growing up, I had how many of my friends? Let me think. At least 6 out of 10 that came from Chicago came up from Chicago because of the violence in 2008, 2007, 2006. It's 2021 and shit is just as bad as it ever was. And yet, here we are. You know what I mean? So I want all of that to sink in. Because the crazy shit we're dealing with right now has no signs of ending. Especially if the progressive wing keeps the stranglehold they have upon the country, upon these cities, upon these states. So all we can pray for is that these moderates that are wrapped up in the progressive collective, we got to pray that these moderates and independents that are in that group see the light and get the fuck out of there. Because we know it's not conservatives. We know it's not center-right, center-left leaning people. We know these are people that are kind of on the fringe of shit. They're kind of on the fringe of moderates, of independents. They kind of like this idea or that idea, and that collective gives them that idea. That collective gives their little idea a little bit of attention, so then they get to run with it. Let all that sink in. Smoke you a bowl and let that shit sink in. Because I let it sink in all the time. Antifa is never too far from my mind. Seeing the little assholes run around with their LARPing on costume on, thinking they were going to do something great for the city, and then during the day, and then literally at night, once the sun goes down, they loot and rob every building they can fucking see. And then they set them on fire for whatever their own reasonings are. So that's why it's always going to be fuck Antifa. It's always going to be fuck Black Lives Matter. Not because Black Lives Matter don't matter. Black lives do matter. All Black lives matter. But the corporation does not matter. The movement is a joke and does not matter. Because they're not in it for the black lives. They're in it for a black name that they can use to make more money to get themselves nice shit. It's a real nice way of saying, I'm going to use your name to grift and make money, but kind of fuck your family in the end. Now, in those notes, you already know what it is. Stay blazed, stay blessed, stay safe, and say it with your boy. Fuck Antifa, fuck Black Lives Matter, and fuck them progressives.